So, hi guys. So we tried for quite some time to bring Michel directly here, but the thing is, he's really busy right now in Ecuador, in Quito, to work on an amazing project called FLOK Society, which stands for Free, Libre and Open Knowledge Society. It's basically the biggest project led by a government which aims to transition the Ecuadorian economy to open source, free knowledge, collaborative peer-to-peer economy. And Michel has been working on a research project for them for the past 6 months, and he's going to tell us a bit about this and how it goes and what are the opportunities, the challenges in all this. Michel, can you hear us correctly?
Yes, I can hear you, but I must say it's not very clear. So, yeah, if you would ask me questions, you'll have to be maybe closer to the computer or something like that.
Okay, but we can hear you very quickly, so it's okay for us.
Okay.
Okay, so maybe.
So I'm starting?
Yeah. So maybe we can start with you just explaining us in 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes, what's been going on in Ecuador for the past 6 months, and what have you been doing in Ecuador for all this time?
Okay, so I will assume that the most of the people listening don't know the details, and so we'll give you some institutional background as well. So, the basic issue is that countries like Ecuador are still in kind of a neo-colonial dependency. They export raw material with low added value, and they have to import production and consumption goods with high added value, and that's creates a dependency for them. And so one of the policy priorities has been to move from a economy of finite resources to an economy of infinite resources. And one minister in particular, called René Ramirez, who is the Secretary of Innovation, talks about a social knowledge economy. And so this is what we've been tasked with. So the project is called FLOK Society Project, Free, Libre, Open Knowledge Society. And it's funded by 3 government institutions: the Ministry of Knowledge, the Secretariat of Innovation, and the public university where I'm working, which is called IAEN. And what they have asked us to do is to make a generic transition plan and about 15 specific policy frameworks for a transition to an open knowledge common society. So this is what we've been asked to do. So we have a research team with 7 people, and 6 of them are not Ecuadorian. And we are just basically finished since the 1st of April with putting our documents online. So just to tell you maybe what it means. So imagine that for every domain of the economy, we would have a commons. An open education commons, an open science commons, an open knowledge commons, for agriculture, for industry, etc. So what we did is we looked at 3 things. One is the feeding mechanisms. For example, if you want open education, you need open educational resources such as open textbooks, open courseware, MOOCs, and how can we get this? How can we stimulate the production of this open educational knowledge in this country? Material conditions, that's the second thing we look at. If you move, this is just an example, if you move from proprietary scientific hardware in your science labs in the universities and the schools, and you move towards open scientific hardware, which are about 1/8 of the cost of proprietary hardware. So this is quite incredible, and this has been documented by Joshua Pierce, that for nearly all the scientific instruments, this is possible. So you could have 8 times more students going through a physical open science infrastructure within the educational field, and that would be a tremendous boost here in Ecuador. The third thing we look at is immaterial conditions, things that you can't touch, basically, right? So think about a finding in university which is too slow. So you have peer-to-peer learning in which is exploding, including new initiatives like the University, Khan Academy, and so what we have there is open accreditation and open badges, but there is no connection between the informal learning. So this is a look at how can we find a system for mutual recognition between open accreditation and the formal accreditation system of the universities. So these are, just an example of our methodology. Why is this important? Well, these have like Linz in Austria, but what we didn't have until now was a nation, a country committing itself to this kind of fundamental. And I think in this sense, this is quite a historic experiment. And so let me explain what will happen in the future with this project. At the end of May, 27 to 30, we have a summit in Quito, which will have representatives of civil society, of the government's institutions, and experts from Ecuador and abroad. 12 tables. Amongst these tables will be, urban policy, open technical infrastructures. Each of these tables will discuss one or more policy documents, and after 3 days there will be a consensus about, and actually a signed agreement from the government institutions saying, okay, we will do this, this, and this. That's the first commitment. The second commitment is that there will be a pilot project for each table. So there will be 12 pilot projects proposed during that summit. The third commitment is that if these pilot projects are successful, they could be expanded to the 24 provinces. I want to give you one example, which is one of my local, the third poorest district in the country called Sigillos. All the farmers have the same problem. They don't have machinery, which is way too expensive and not designed for small family farmers. And the prices of their commodities going down under the pressure of the globalized market. So they're actually impoverishing every year. And the knowledge that they would need to make this machinery is privatized, so they don't have legal access to it. So what we have now is the emergence throughout the world of open agricultural machining design communities. Sorry, it's a long concept, right? So there are open communities of farmers sharing designs for machinery. We have FarmHack in the US, with thousands of slow tools projects in the US. In France, you have a project I think is really great called, and it's Adabio Autoconstruction. And there was a really interesting article in Basta magazine called Libérer les machines. So this is a community in France that is, sharing a machine design. So imagine this: the farmers in Sigillos would have access to the knowledge being developed by these global open design communities. This is open knowledge, legally accessible, that they could work on and improve in a traditional open source fashion. You would combine this with a system of local distributed manufacturing. In other words, you would have micro factories with 3D print, these new type of production. that would allow them to locally close to the place of need. So imagine this, machines that are 1/8 of the cost of the Western machines that they can't really afford. Imagine they would have the nutrient dense project, which community scientists and farmers that are mutualizing their research on. So the mayor of Sigils is actually very enthusiastic about this, and so this will be one pilot project. Is looking if we can develop, a domestic industry of appropriate technology for small farmers, which are 70% of the population. Now, I will conclude by saying that this is not just for Ecuador. This is a project that the first time we are actually making and proposing an integrated transition plan with concrete policies for transition towards a commons-based, sharing-based, open society. Has never happened before, and in this sense, though it's a very challenging project with, we are operating a world of politics, this is a very challenging project, but I think quite an opportunity, not just for Ecuador, but I think it's a geopolitical project. That's my summary.
Thank you, Michel. Thanks a lot. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I hope, I think we had some small glitches during your presentation, but we heard most of it. I hope the connection is good on your side.
Saying that there is this tension here in Ecuador between pragmatic adaptation to existing globalized structures and radical transformation. And for example, the same ministries may do something that goes in the direction of FLOK towards open knowledge, and at the same time they may be signing agreements with Monsanto and with Microsoft, right? So this is the kind of opposition that the project faces, is that either through pure pragmatism, like, okay, we would like to use free software, but it doesn't exist yet. We can't find the right people to do it in Ecuador, so we'll just sign with Microsoft, right? Instead of investing in a bit more long-term development of local knowledge around free software development. So, for us, it's hard to know the total motivation of the political people who asked us to come. And there are several hypotheses that you could make about this. For example, as the government is adapting more and more to the existing situation and being less radical in its transformative desire, it may look attractive to have a project where you only attack the immaterial field, right? So the idea you can be more radical because it's just knowledge and information, and so that could be potentially used as a public relations exercise, right? This is a hypothesis, and once they realize that through the immaterial world you actually challenge deep material interests, right? If you challenge intellectual property, you're challenging the main source of profit nowadays, because the profit rates in production are very low, and the profit rates in financial speculation and intellectual property rent are very high. So once you go in that direction, what may seem at first like an innocent project of creating a few commons may suddenly frontally attack material interests, right? These kind of tensions may come out. once we actually have, accepted policy proposals, because it's not certain that all these material interests at this moment actually realize what the project is really doing. I give you another example, because this is kind of a bottom-up concern. Traditional community, with traditional knowledge in Ecuador, are not very keen on open licenses, because their feeling is if you have a fully open license, that multinationals would take their medical knowledge, take it out of the country, commercialize it, and they will not see any benefit from it, right? So, for example, we are dealing with these concerns that are very strong in the countryside by proposing something called a commons-based reciprocity license, like the peer production license. Because this is a license that says, yes, you can share, but if there is no reciprocity, you have to pay for the use of that license. So this is a very big concern in traditional communities. They are distrustful of full openness because of their historical experience of biopiracy.
Thanks, Michel. I think we have time for a very last question, and after we need to do the wrap up of the day. Do somebody else has another question, maybe? A last question for Michel? Yes, there is one here, or there, or okay. Two quick ones. Two quick answers. I mean.
Hello, Michel. Quick question would be: do you know any other area in the world where such government or public institution would be keen on replicating this kind of approach that you are doing in Ecuador?
Okay, I didn't get this. I'm sorry. If you can quickly type it,
yes,
Benjamin.
Yes. Can you hear it?
Yes, I can hear you better. Yes. Okay. For the moment, we have no reactions from any national government, but we have a lot of reaction from cities. So we have contacts in Seoul, in Medellin, in Italian cities where people are very keen to know what we're doing, but to apply it on the city level. I'm not sure if you know this, but Bologna, for example, wants to transform itself into a city of the commons. Naples has commodified their public water. It's called Acqua Beni Comuni. So, for example, in Italy is a country where there is a very deep shift towards commons thinking at the level of some local authorities. So we get quite a bit of these kind of reactions, but so far I'm not aware of any national government that has done so. And I heard from Benjamin, and maybe I shouldn't say this, that the FLOK project has actually been on the desk of the French Prime Minister, or at least the former one, but that it didn't really get what it was about. So there's also a paradigm shift, where there's a mental paradigm shift in moving away from thinking between public and private, and thinking about the commons as a philosophy of change. And we are introducing a lot of new concepts like public commons partnerships, the commonification of public services, that come actually from the Italian commons movement, but that are certainly not widespread ideas at the present.
Okay, thank you, Michel. I think we'll have to close. No, very last one. Okay, very quick one and very 1 minute answer. But
yes, and I actually want to make a little request as well. I'm putting it in the chat box. We have 2 documents, and okay, now I have to find the Google Hangout here, and I just want to say that the general transition document and the 15 policy documents are open for comments and participation. Yes. So we're using a free software program from France, from Philippe Aigrin, yes, called meant, and we really urge people from the whole world to check out the documents and to propose changes and additions to what we propose.
Yes. Thanks, Michel. I just load up the document and we'll communicate the URL to people. So very last question, very quickly, and we have only 1 minute for answer.
I was wondering what the strategy is to gather and raise public awareness and support, especially in a country like Ecuador, where I can imagine not all farmers are on Twitter and the like.
Okay, I didn't get it. Benjamin, can you quickly translate?
So the question is, how do you reach to people who are not all on social media and?
How do you gather and raise public awareness and
yes.
So how do we reach people who are not familiar?
So how do you get public awareness for this project where not everybody is connected to the internet or digital tools?
Yes, okay, there are two issues here. The first issue is that so far the mainstream press has not reported at all about what we are doing. So this is a certain difficulty, actually reaching people that are still using traditional media. So this is one problem. The second problem, of lack of connectivity, which is really a big problem here in Ecuador. We have organized 24 participatory workshops, one in each province, with civil society. You're actually using theater techniques. It's called Theater of the Oppressed. It's an old technique from Paulo Freire. And we've used this both in popular neighborhoods and in rural areas to get, popular input from people who are not always and often not connected to the digital world. So it's a difficult problem. It's not something we can solve in 6 months. But we've made a big effort, to connect with local organizations, and probably half of our time has been spent talking and meeting people, about this project.
Thanks a lot, Michel. I think we will close the conversation now, but this was really interesting and inspiring and great to have an update of the project. So we look forward to the summit you have in the end of May, or where you will publish the conclusions. And in the meantime, we can all comment on the. So it's floksociety.co-ment.org.
Yeah, and one little thing, Benjamin.
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica, they always say frack, right? Frack this, frack that. So I suggest that people in Ouishare start saying, let's flog this and let's flog that. All right?
Okay. Let's. So, yeah, because. So you should say we should go from FLOK Society to FLOK Society, right?
All right. Let's flog France.
Thank you, Michel. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.